So I pre-ordered this shoe just about 8 months ago, and even though I've been waiting 8 months to grab this sneaker, it's been totally worth the wait. What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm reviewing the ALD New Balance 650R. So I should really start off this review by saying I kind of have a weird thing for 80s basketball sneakers. It's weird because I wasn't around in the 80s, I was born in 92, which means I'm 30, which is awful. But there's just something about the simple construction and the overall shape and the design of these 80s basketball sneakers that I'm just drawn to. I don't know exactly what it is, I can't put my finger on it, but I just love 80s basketball high tops. And so for me, alongside the Air Jordan 1 and the Adidas Forum, the New Balance 650R is an incredible sneaker that I'm absolutely in love with. I mean, I understand if you don't get it. I understand if you look at this shoe and go, really? This is the shoe that you love so much? But yes, this shoe is fire, and I think it's my favorite New Balance of 2022. But before we dive any deeper into the review, to give you guys some background on how I grabbed this shoe, I pre-ordered this shoe back in July of last year, which is crazy to think about because that was 8 months ago. I paid $165 8 months ago to get a pair of sneakers today, and the one thing that just really bothers me is that I should have bought the 2 other colorways as well. I don't know what I was thinking. But as I just said, this shoe had a retail price of $165, and unfortunately, as of right now, there is no re-release of this shoe in sight. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if ALD and New Balance decide to re-release this sneaker down the road. That's what they've done with their 550s in the past in a lot of different colorways. But it's also possible that this could be the only release of these shoes. And you might be watching this video a year from now being like, you're stupid, they're gonna release a pair right after you drop this video. But I don't know. At the time of me recording this in the beginning of April 2022, there's no release date in sight. So unfortunately, if you wanted a pair of Aime Dore 650Rs, you would have had to pre-order them back in July of last year, or buy a pair for resale, which I've actually left a link to do in the top of the description below. And actually, right now might not be a bad time to grab a pair of these because they're not going for that much on the resale market, like $250, $300, which is, yes, $100 to $150 more than what they actually sold for, but I wouldn't be surprised if these skyrocket in price in the future. Now, before we actually dive into this review, there's a couple things I want to clear up. First of all, I finally learned how to pronounce Aime Dore. It's Aime Dore. I usually call it ALD because I have no idea what I'm saying. And the second thing is that the 650R is not actually the same sneaker as the 650. This is the New Balance 650. If you Google New Balance 650, you're gonna get this shoe and not this shoe. And if you want a pair of ALD New Balance 650Rs, you gotta make sure to add the R on the end of the name. Well, actually, the 650R is really the only New Balance 650 that anyone's Googling, so you should still probably find this shoe, but just for your own personal reference. So if you're watching this review, I'm sure you're familiar with the New Balance 550 and the New Balance ALD 550s. These shoes released 2 years ago and are actually just a low-top version of the New Balance 650Rs. And I'm not sure exactly why they decided to release the low-top version of this shoe before the high-top version of the shoe and vice versa. I'm not sure exactly what the thought process behind that was, but either way, I'm glad we've had the 550s in as many different colorways and variations as we've had it, and now I'm really glad that we've got the 650Rs because the high-top version is just as clean, and honestly, in my opinion, even cleaner than the 550s. So the story as to why the New Balance 650R finally returned in 2022 after its 40-year hiatus is very similar to the reason why the New Balance 550 returned in 2020. And the reason for that is one man, Teddy Santis, the founder of ALD, or Aime Dore, who is now actually the creative director of New Balance Made in USA. So Teddy Santis has this way of digging in New Balance's vaults and finding silhouettes that are discontinued and bringing them back to life with an ALD collaboration. That's what he did with the 550s, that's what he's done with the 827s, and that's now what he's, almost dropped it. And that's now what he's doing with the New Balance 650R. And thank God he has, because all of the shoes that he's brought out of the vault have been fire. Specifically, the 550s, one of my favorite sneakers of the last couple years, and the 650R, one of my favorite sneakers of 2020. Even though it's only April, this is definitely gonna be on my top 10 list. I love this sneaker. Well, actually, should this shoe be on my 2021 list because this shoe was sold to me in 2021? I don't know. It's gonna be on my 2022 list regardless. But with all that being said, the 650R is here, and I'm so glad it is. And before we actually dive into the materials that make up this shoe, let's take a quick look at the box. So even though this shoe is a different silhouette than the New Balance 550s, it has a very similar box, and that's obviously one, because it's an ALD collaboration, but two, because it's also a very similar sneaker. Now you might recognize the colorway of this box because it's very similar to the colorway of the ALD New Balance 550s it released a couple years ago. The big difference though is that the box is actually significantly more sturdy than those boxes, and it's made of seemingly reinforced cardboard, whereas those boxes are made of like that really thin paper cardboard that just flexes all the time and you can't really get to stay straight. This one's actually a box, and a very sturdy box at that. Now, as you can see, the colorway of this box is that sort of cream yellow color that's used on the midsole of the shoe. You've also got this gray hit running down the center of this swoosh thing, which is not really a swoosh because that's trademarked by another company, but this nice little wave of line, which is surrounded by this green color, which can be found on another colorway of the 650Rs. On either side of the top of the box, you've got the New Balance logo right on top of the Aime Dore logo, and then on the sides of the box, you've got the silver outline of the New Balance 650R. Then, of course, you've got the size tag on one side of the box. I went with the size 9, which is my true size. Then, as far as colorway, they don't actually list out the colors used on the shoe on the box, but they do give you a unique style code, BB650RA1. But with the surprisingly sturdy box out of the way, let's get right back into the sneakers. So one pretty important piece of information that I feel like I've left out so far in the review is that this shoe technically only exists as an ALD collaboration. There are no just New Balance 650Rs that have released in over 40 years. And so because of that, in a way, the New Balance 650R is one of New Balance's most exclusive silhouettes. In fact, it probably is. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if New Balance does what they did with the New Balance 550s and release non-collaboration versions of that shoe in like Foot Lockers and places like that. But as of right now, you can only grab the 650Rs as an ALD collaboration. And honestly, the colors that were used on this collaboration make me not care if they drop anymore, because these colorways are fire and I would buy all three of them and just rock them forever if I could. But diving right into the materials, around the toe of the shoe on the mud guard, you've got this really nice, pretty thick cream colored leather. Well, I guess it's really not a cream colored leather, it's more of like a sail color or sort of an off-white color, but either way, it's a very clean look. Moving up from that, you've got another panel of that same sort of leather on the toe, and just above that, moving towards the tongue, you've got some dark gray mesh. Now, as you can see, I went with the gray colorway of the New Balance ALD 650Rs. There are two other colorways that released, a navy blue colorway, which is very similar to this in that the only navy blue is these color accents that you see throughout the sneaker, and also a green colorway, which like this shoe only has green on the accent details. In fact, come to think of it, I think it's the original colors that were used when ALD first released their ALD 550 collaboration, so it makes sense. Continuing up on the shoe, on the bottommost lace eyelets of the sneaker, you've got this perforated leather panel that on the lateral side has the 650 logo. Interestingly enough, this 650 doesn't have an R behind it, which leads a lot of people to believe, including myself, that this shoe is just the standard 650. It wasn't until recently that I learned that this is the 650R, even though I pre-ordered the shoes at that point 7 months earlier. Then around the edge of this perforated panel, you've got this medium gray piping, and continuing up on the shoe, you get to these sort of off-white colored laces. Now, when you take the shoe out of the box, the shoe comes pre-laced with these off-white flat laces. However, if you decide that you want to switch these laces out for different colored laces, they give you two other options: a very cream colored lace and also an accent colored lace, which matches the accent color of the shoe that you grab. In my case, obviously, it's a gray set of laces. And I think for me personally, while the cream laces would probably look very good, I'm pretty lazy and I'm probably just gonna leave the white laces in. Then underneath the laces, you've got this cream colored nylon that makes up a majority of the tongue. And then as you get to the top of the tongue, you've got this gray outline as well as the Aime Dore logo mixed together with the New Balance logo in this cool like New Balance Apple situation, which I really like. Then moving inside the sneaker, you get to this off-white colored mesh sock liner, which is surprisingly nicely padded, and I really appreciate that. Then rounding off the inside of the shoe, you've got this gray ortholite insole. Now, what I just found out about this insole is that it's actually a dual foam insole. You've got your blue foam, which makes up a majority of the insole, and then around the heel, you've got some extra gray foam of some kind. Not sure exactly what it is, but feels great underfoot. And according to the text on the top of this panel, it says that it provides some arch support, which is always a good thing. I have pretty high arches, so that's always nice. As far as sizing and fit, the New Balance 650R does seem to run true to size. In fact, it fits almost exactly like the New Balance 550, except with a little bit less heel slippage because you've got more of an ankle area there. And honestly, in terms of comfort and fit, I have no complaints about this sneaker whatsoever. It's a pretty comfortable shoe overall. Keep in mind, it's an 80s basketball sneaker, so it's not gonna feel like groundbreaking comfort. It's not gonna feel like Boost or anything like that, but it does feel decent underfoot, pretty similar to that of an Air Jordan 1 or an Adidas Forum. However, I will say that this ortholite insole does help a little bit and does make it a little bit more wearable throughout the day than either of those two sneakers. Then continuing back on the shoe, you get to more of that off-white colored leather, accented by this cracked 3D New Balance logo. Now, a detail that I really like about this New Balance logo is that there's actually another piece of leather underneath the main leather panel, and that provides a nice accent color. In this case, it's sort of a cream accent color, and it really makes this logo seem even more 3D than it actually is. Then continuing even farther back in the shoe, around the top of the ankle, you've got more of that cream colored mesh, which again is pretty well padded. Just below that, you've got this gray leather panel with the New Balance logo printed onto it, and just below that, on the heel of the shoe, you've got another white leather panel with the New Balance logo on one side and then the ALD logo on the other side. And again, that ALD basketball Apple logo is really, really clean. Then continuing down on on the shoe, you get to that sort of aged, cream-colored midsole, which is something that ALD has done on all of their collaborations with New Balance, at least on the 550s or 650Rs. And it's a detail that I've talked a lot about in other reviews of other shoes that feature this sort of cream-colored midsole. I'm not really a huge fan of artificially vintageizing sneakers. I know I just talked about that in the Air Jordan 3 review that I just did, but there's something about this color on the midsole of this shoe that just looks amazing. I still feel like fake oxidized midsoles are still kind of corny, but it looks great. I can't even be mad at it. When it's done in the right way like this, I really like it. And then finally, moving to the bottom of the sneaker, you've got your non-marking gray rubber outsole. So you guys can pretty much tell how much I love this sneaker. I think the New Balance 650R is an incredible silhouette. I think the high top version of the 550 might even be better than the 550, at least visually. I love high top sneakers, so there's that too. A little bit of bias, but at the same time, the shoe just feels more complete than the 550s. And of course, when the shoe is a collaboration with ALD, a brand that consistently has excellent collaborations, the sneaker just works. Yes, this sneaker might be a little bit too old school for some people, I understand that, but at the same time, this is such a classic looking shoe. This is a shoe that you can wear every single day with pretty much anything, and honestly right now, this is pretty high fashion. All that aside though, I don't like the New Balance 650R because it's hype right now, because it's in fashion. I like it because it's exactly my type of sneaker. This is the kind of shoe that I could see myself wearing for decades, and it stood the test of time. I mean, while the sneaker is not released, over the last 40 years, it's still a style that has been consistently releasing, and a style that I don't think ever will go out of style. And also, I've got to say, this shoe looks great with a clean pair of Apothecary socks. If you want to grab your sneaker's favorite sock, make sure to click the link in the description below. But now, I would love to know your thoughts on the ALD New Balance 650R, and whether you were able to grab a pair of these when they were available for pre-order, or whether you let this sneaker go, and also whether you want to grab a pair of these if these ever re-release. So make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.